Kurt McFall was born in San Diego in 1966, a bright and popular student at Clayton Valley High School. He was known as confident, energetic, and caring, participating in school newspaper and yearbook clubs while developing a passion for mathematics and science. Beyond academics, Kurt loved the outdoors, swimming, and cliff climbing. His early interest in Dungeons and Dragons led him to join the Society for Creative Anachronism, where he purchased a suit of armor for activities. In September 1984, he drove to San Francisco to spend the night with a friend, but never returned. According to people close to him, Kurt had become increasingly involved in occult practices and what some described as a satanic cult that dabbled in black magic. He allegedly told a high school friend he felt trapped and feared for his life. 2 days after his disappearance, birdwatchers discovered his bruised and half-naked body on a remote beach below Land's End Cliffs. His body was missing a shirt, shoes, and socks, displaying multiple traumatic injuries and severe blood loss. Oddly, there were only minor abrasions on some parts of his body, and his autopsy revealed no substances in his system. Empty beer bottles were scattered around his abandoned car, which was found on a golf course overlooking the ocean. His driver's license was discovered on the floor, and his car keys were on the seat, but the prized suit of armor he'd purchased was missing from the trunk. The San Francisco coroner determined he died from multiple traumatic injuries and blood loss, likely from a fall, yet couldn't conclusively establish the precise use. Initially, investigators believed it was a probable accidental fall from climbing the cliffs, but even the coroner later remarked that an intentional act was plausible. The case was officially classified as unknown. One controversial figure was Gabriel Silo, a neo-pagan group leader who befriended Kurt and allowed him to spend nights at his apartment. Salo recounted that Kurt went swimming and returned around 3 a.m., saying he was going back to the beach, suggesting Kurt may have taken too many risks that night. Kurt's father believed his son wouldn't have been careless climbing those dangerous cliffs, especially at night, and suspected the strange staging of the scene indicated tampering. Yet without evidence, the truth remains elusive. Jerry and Rita Alter seemed like a completely ordinary retired couple living quietly in New Mexico. Jerry was a retired public school music teacher and professional musician, while Rita worked as a speech pathologist in the local public schools. They were known to neighbors and colleagues as polite, educated, and unremarkable in their habits. Friends described them as not exactly thrill seekers. Despite their modest income, they managed to travel extensively, vacationing during school breaks and visiting over 140 countries while documenting their journeys in photographs and even authoring a book about their travels. By the time of their deaths, Jerry in 2012 and Rita in 2017, they had somehow amassed over $1 million in savings. That changed dramatically in August 2017 when, after Rita's death, their estate was liquidated. An antique dealer purchased their household contents for roughly $2,000. While clearing out their remote home, the dealer discovered a large painting hanging hidden behind a master bedroom door. The artwork was positioned so the door would conceal it when opened, and a homemade doorstop prevented the door from striking the canvas. The painting was dirty, cracked, and covered in dust and cobwebs, suggesting it had hung undisturbed for many years. It was eventually identified as a Dunning masterpiece, stolen from the University of Arizona Museum of Art in 1985. A valuable abstract expressionist work estimated worth up to $150 million today. A photograph from Alfaguiso's Millie Thanksgiving gathering in Tucson on November 28, 1985, placed them in the same city as the museum one day before the robbery. The composite sketches of the original suspects bore notable resemblance to Jerry and Rita's faces, particularly Rita's features. Jerry had even written a short story in which a grandmother and granddaughter distract a security guard to steal a museum's prize jewel, then hide it where only their eyes would ever see it. Despite these compelling coincidences, no charges were ever filed because both were deceased by the time the painting was discovered. The Congamato is a legendary creature from African folklore, described as a pterosaur-like being with leathery wings and teeth. Local people in Zambia, Angola, and the Congo have told stories of this creature for centuries, claiming it attacks canoes and fishermen. What's intriguing is how accurately these ancient oral traditions describe prehistoric flying reptiles that wouldn't be scientifically documented for hundreds of years. When explorers showed villagers pictures of actual pterosaurs, they immediately recognized them as the Congamato. Scientists remain skeptical, suggesting misidentifications of large birds or bats, yet the consistency across cultures remains genuinely puzzling. Heidi de Schieper was a 26-year-old Belgian mother who vanished in 2010, but her disappearance wasn't reported until 2024, 14 years later. She had endured a troubled childhood, including time in institutional care. At 18, she cut off contact with her biological family and moved in with a much older boyfriend in Boulogne, a relationship that was extremely disturbing. By 2008, the couple lived together with 3 young children, aged 2, 3, and 7, leading an isolated life with few social contacts. In mid-2010, Heidi disappeared suddenly without warning. Her ex-boyfriend later confirmed to social services that she had moved away so as not to draw government benefits in her name for the children. No one, not even her partner, reported her missing. Her absence went entirely unnoticed by authorities for years. Administrative records even gave the illusion she'd simply relocated. Her last administrative trace was collecting a provisional driver's license on May 6, 2010. By November 2010, her name was removed from the population register entirely. It wasn't until late 2023 when a school report alerted authorities to the mother's prolonged absence that a missing person investigation finally began. In January 2025, Belgian federal police issued a public appeal for information. The most discussed theory involves foul play by the ex-boyfriend, who was originally her foster parent. After divorcing his wife, a mother figure to Heidi, he began a relationship with her when she was a young adult. She became pregnant with their first child at 19. The disturbing guardian-turned-boyfriend dynamic prompted shock and outrage. He claims she left voluntarily due to a substance abuse problem, choosing drugs over their children. However, friends describe her as a devoted mother who would never simply abandon her kids. Another possibility is that Heidi met with a tragic incident, either accidental or intentional, related to substance abuse or domestic distress. The case gripped Belgium precisely because she vanished so completely into bureaucratic silence. Hey everyone, it's Jimmy here with a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button and share this video with a few people you know. Sharing my content is genuinely the best way to help the channel grow, and it costs you absolutely nothing. Now back to the mysteries. The Manipogo is a legendary lake monster, supposedly inhabiting Lake Manitoba in Canada. Indigenous peoples had long told stories of giant water creatures in the lake, and when European settlers arrived, the legend persisted through the 20th century. Fishermen reported seeing humps breaking the surface, and in 1962, a photograph supposedly captured a long snake-like form, though skeptics immediately suggested it was just a fallen tree. A man claimed he'd shot a 50-foot lake creature and that authorities secretly removed it, a story nobody verified, and that frankly sounds physically impossible. Today, the Manipogo is a beloved local mascot with its own festival, following the pattern of most cryptids that transition from feared monster to regional celebrity. The White Death is an internet urban legend from the early 2000s that has since been largely forgotten by most people. According to the story, a supernatural entity hunts anyone who becomes aware of its existence. The creature doesn't simply kill you, it erases you completely from history and memory. What makes this legend stick is the idea that merely knowing about it puts you in danger. Unlike traditional haunted location stories, you can't escape by moving away because the entity lives in your mind. The story probably circulated because it tapped into genuine fears about forbidden knowledge and inevitable consequences in our information-saturated world. Pyramid power is the belief that pyramids possess mysterious, energetic properties capable of preserving objects, sharpening blades, and healing human bodies. The concept gained serious traction in the 1970s through New Age authors, though its modern form originated with a French hardware store owner in the 1930s who noticed dead animals in Egyptian pyramids appeared mummified. He theorized the pyramid's geometry created this preservation effect and experimented with scale models. Scientists have repeatedly tested these claims and found no evidence supporting pyramid energy. Humidity, temperature, and airflow explain the observed effects far better than mystical forces. Yet the belief persists among enthusiasts who see pyramids as cosmic antennas. Lenny Dirksen disappeared in March 1998 from his Oklahoma dairy farm under genuinely mysterious circumstances. He was a 39-year-old farmer who had recently gone through a painful divorce and was struggling financially with declining milk prices. A stranger arrived in a white 1994 Ford F-150 pickup truck with New Mexico plates and a distinctive yellow tag on the front. The man claimed interest in buying stud horses. Lenny told his teenage son Jared that he would accompany the stranger to Elk City, Oklahoma, and then to Texas to look at horses, promising to return by afternoon. He left with the man and never came back. A possible sighting placed him in a diner 2 hours later, drinking coffee with an unidentified man, though his family doubted the accuracy since he had already eaten breakfast at home. Months later, in September 1998, an anonymous caller claimed to have seen Lenny in an Amarillo bar, describing him in detail and insisting the man claimed to know Lenny personally. The caller said he would wait at the bar for police to arrive, but when officers rushed there, Both the tipster and the alleged Lenny were gone. A bartender corroborated parts of the story, remembering the enthusiastic caller. Theories range from voluntary disappearance, motivated by financial desperation and his divorce, to foul play by the mysterious stranger. The stranger was never identified. Without evidence, investigators pursued dead ends for years. Lenny's devoted relationship with his teenage son cast significant doubt on the voluntary disappearance theory, as he would likely have contacted Jared. The Peon Valley John Doe was discovered as just a skull in 1981 in Tennessee, unidentified for over 40 years. In 2023, advanced DNA genealogy identified him as Marcus Rutich, who disappeared in summer 1998. Investigation revealed he'd dropped out of school and was selling drugs to make ends meet. He'd had confrontations with people in the months before vanishing. His best friend was murdered months later, raising questions about connections, yet investigators found no clear link. The question of who killed Marcus remains unanswered despite his eventual identification. The skunk ape is Florida's version of Bigfoot, reportedly roaming the swamps and encountering humans for over 2 centuries. Described as 5 to 8 feet tall, covered in hair, and smelling unbearably foul, the creature has generated countless sightings since the 1800s. Reports intensified in the 1950s and 1970s, with multiple witnesses describing attacks on livestock and even homes. In 1977, a Florida representative actually proposed a bill to protect the creature from harm, though it failed amid considerable ridicule. The most famous evidence was the macaca photographs from 2000, showing an ape-like creature in a yard, though skeptics immediately questioned whether they were simply hoaxes. Despite countless sightings, no body or definitive remains have ever surfaced. Hey everyone, it's Jimmy here, with a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Sharing this video with people you know is genuinely the best way to help the channel, so I'd really appreciate it. Now back to our mysteries. Christine DeZera was a young Filipina flight attendant found dead in a hotel bathtub on New Year's Day, 2021. Initial reports suggested assault, with bruises and signs of physical trauma visible. However, the official autopsy ruled her death as natural, caused by a ruptured aortic aneurysm. The conflicting narratives created enormous controversy. The decision to embalm her body before comprehensive forensic examination compromised evidence collection. Her family and critics argue the investigation was rushed and mishandled, while authorities maintain the medical evidence points to natural causes. The case showcases how even with physical evidence, determining truth can be nearly impossible when narratives directly contradict. Adam Hecht vanished from Beverly Hills in 1989, a young man from a wealthy Hollywood family. He'd recently befriended a homeless man called Tony, and surprisingly to his privileged circle, invited him to live in his apartment. Adam became increasingly interested in meditation and spiritual pursuits, eventually spending nights with the homeless population. On June 7th, he drove away in a rental car and never returned. His car was found abandoned with his wallet, license, and cash inside, suggesting he'd simply left his old life behind. His family insists he would never do this without contacting them, suggesting foul play. Without evidence, investigators treated it as a missing person case that eventually went cold. The Louisiana John Doe remains one of the most haunting cases ever recorded. In 1975, authorities discovered a young man hanging from a tree, seemingly by his own hand. Most remarkably, he left a lengthy letter requesting that his identity never be investigated, asking that his remains be cremated so his parents would retain hope that their son was still alive elsewhere. Investigators found no identification, only personal items. Over 300 families came forward, but none matched. The case was closed without resolution. One theory suggests he might have been Bayard Williamson Cousins, a young philosopher who disappeared at nearly the same time, though significant age differences cast doubt on the identification. The Buckskin Girl was murdered in Ohio in 1981, identified only by the distinctive tasseled suede poncho she wore. Despite extensive investigation, authorities couldn't identify her for decades. Forensic genetic genealogy eventually revealed her name was Maria King, a 21-year-old from Arkansas and a hitchhiker traveling across states. Her refined appearance suggested she had places to stay and people helping her. Someone killed her brutally, leaving her body beside a rural road. Investigators suspect a traveling companion, boyfriend, or possibly someone from a cult she encountered. Her murderer remains unknown. Paula Abdul claimed she survived a catastrophic plane crash in the early 1990s that caused spinal injuries requiring 15 surgeries and derailed her career 7 years. However, the National Transportation Safety Board has no record of any such crash. No contemporaneous news coverage exists, despite being major headline material. Her timeline has been inconsistent, sometimes saying 1992 during her tour, other times 1993 after it ended. Supporters argue she experienced a hard landing not officially classified as a crash, or trauma affected her memory. Skeptics note the complete absence of evidence creates serious doubts about the story. The Iron Maiden is historically presented as a medieval torture device, a cabinet lined with interior spikes that would pierce victims' bodies when closed. Yet historians have found virtually no medieval evidence of any such device actually existing. The concept appears to have originated in much earlier cultures and was apparently fabricated or embellished by 19th century showmen and writers. The famous Nuremberg Iron Maiden on display was constructed around 1800 specifically for exhibition purposes, not a surviving medieval artifact. Early accounts describe similar torture methods in Roman and Arabian contexts, but no evidence exists of dedicated iron cabinets with interior spikes from the Middle Ages, making the entire mythology a product of modern imagination rather than historic reality. Jason Landry disappeared in December 2020 after his car crashed in rural Texas. He was alone in the vehicle, which struck a tree beside a gravel road. His belongings were scattered around the scene, but he was nowhere to be found. Search dogs tracked his scent a quarter-mile back toward town before the trail inexplicably ended, suggesting someone picked him up. Yet no evidence supports this theory. Investigators explored whether he was injured or disoriented, possibly removing his clothing in a hypothermia-induced delirium before wandering into darkness. Others theorize he suffered a traumatic brain injury that caused him to act strangely. His case remains unsolved, with Jason vanishing completely into the Texas wilderness. The Honjo Masamune is considered the ultimate samurai sword, forged by the legendary swordsmith Masamune in medieval Japan. It symbolized the authority of the Tokugawa shogunate for centuries and was designated a national treasure of Japan in 1939. During World War II occupation, all weapons were surrendered to authorities. The Tokugawa family complied, turning the priceless sword over to police in Tokyo in December 1945. The understanding was that these swords would be kept safe and potentially returned to the family during Japan's post-war reconstruction. In January 1946, the surrendered swords were handed over by the police to a U.S. officer from the Foreign Liquidation Commission. But there was just one problem. He identified himself by the impossible name C.I. Bohr, a name that doesn't correspond to any real American serviceman. After that transfer, the trail went completely cold. The sword never appeared in any official records or collections again. Theories include inadvertent destruction during occupation when many confiscated swords were dumped at sea or melted down. Another possibility is that C.I. Bohr, whoever he actually was, realized the value of the Honjo Masamune and kept it as a personal war trophy, quietly passing it down through his family or selling it privately. A third theory suggests C.I. Bohr was fabricated entirely by someone in the Japanese police who recognized the sword's value and kept it for themselves. The sword has never surfaced despite occasional rumors and claims over the decades, making it one of history's most valuable missing objects and one of the most perplexing cases of post-war theft or loss.